Guys, I need to confess something to you, and it has to do with plates. So when I am at my house, I do this weird thing. If I'm eating something that's so delicious, like there's like really good sauce, or maybe it's a bowl of ice cream, I don't want to leave any part left. And so I will practically scrape it to the point where I've been known to almost lick my plate. Now, I know that's so weird, and yes, you can judge me, but when I'm in public, I typically don't do that. If I'm at a restaurant, I might get bread and like try to saturate the sauce off to eat it. Now, you can judge me all you want, but I know that you do the same thing. Maybe you don't lick your plates, but maybe you do something weird. Maybe you, in public, are devoted, like you love rap or something, but at home you belt out Disney princess songs. I don't really know. If you want to share those, I'm so curious to see who has the weirdest thing that they do at home that they normally don't do in public. Feel free to drop it in our chat because I'm so curious to see what those things are. But it's kind of funny to think about. But the reality is we do this. We act one way at home. And a lot of times we act another way out with our friends, out if we're working already, out at school. We're different. It's like we have two different worlds. But why do we do that? Why are we doing that? Now, when I think about it, I was thinking about, especially in this season where we're sheltered in place, I'm realizing I'm being more irritable at home. I can have less patience for my family when I might be more patient with other people. Think about it. You can relate to this. I mean, at school, you would never, ever go to a coach, right? Or a teacher and be like, I don't like those drills. I'm not doing them. Whereas at home, you might maybe push a fight with your family and be like, I don't want to do those chores. I hate doing that. Or you would never go to your friend's house and be like, oh, this is gross. Are we really eating this for dinner? But at your house, you definitely would push back, especially if your mom made that meal that you just don't like. Or maybe you never ever in your mind would ever think about chewing out your friends the way that you sort of snap at your siblings at home. You see, there's things that we do at home that is different. We act different. And I think a lot of this, there's different reasons, but I think a lot of it boils down to the fact that when we're at home, we know it's kind of like our world. That's how we feel about it. We're letting loose. This is our space. But when we go out into the world, we recognize we're dealing with other people's worlds. And the reality is most of us, when the reason why we're getting so upset at home is because we're asking the question, how does this affect me? Whatever the situation is going on, how are what they're doing affecting me? And the problem is when it affects us in a bad way, we treat people poorly. Oh, you made the dinner that I don't like? I'm going to then show you how annoyed I am about that, and everyone is going to know. Or think about it with your siblings. Maybe you stayed up really, really late studying for a test, and your sibling did not stay up, didn't study, just played video games all day, and they still got a good grade. And that annoys you, and you feel that's not fair, right? And you may treat your sibling being annoyed because that's not fair. But it changes the vibe in your house. You see, when we act like this, when we ask this question, how does this affect me? We often are now affecting our family. We're changing the vibe. We're adding to the tension and the drama. And so the question that I have tonight is this: what do you do about it? What do you do when things are tough at home, when the mood is off, when you know you're actually a part of the reason that things are tense, but you don't know what to do about it? Now, this whole series is called What Do You Do When You Don't Know What to Do? And we're definitely in a season where a lot of those kinds of questions are coming up. What do you do when you don't know what to do? And tonight, we're going to be starting a series where we're looking at the life of Joseph. His whole life story is written in the book of Genesis at the very beginning of the Bible. His story is really rad. It's so cool. It's crazy. It's actually one of those like TLC specials. It could be a total documentary. There's actually a play that was designed, written after him. But it's interesting to look at his life. He was thrown into prison, wrongfully accused. He was sold into slavery by his family. It's just this insane story. But we're going to look at how does he deal with it? What does he do when he doesn't know what to do? And hopefully we can learn from him and his life. But tonight, before we do that, we need to start with looking at his family because that's where the drama starts. Now, before we get into all the details, I need to help set this story up. There's a lot of different characters, so hopefully you can kind of track with me. As you can see here, we have some awesome drawings to help us follow along. I know, we're going old school. First off, Joseph was born into a family with 11 other brothers. Look at all of those brothers, right? 11 different brothers. And his dad was a man named Jacob. Now, Jacob, his story is crazy. I encourage you to go and read his story. Jacob actually stole the birthright from his older brother. Then he had to run away. He met this guy named Laban and fell in love with his daughter named Rachel. He loved her and he wanted to marry her. Laban said, sweet, you can totally marry her. But sadly, Jacob was tricked into marrying her other sister, Leah. Now, he was pretty upset about this, but he promised Laban, I'll work 7 more years and now let me marry Rachel, which happens. But sadly, Rachel can't have kids. And this is a big deal. Now, the story kind of keeps unfolding and there's lots of drama. Jacob ends up having children with Leah and 2 other women. So now there are 4 different women that he is sort of, being married to, if you get my drift, even though he didn't necessarily marry all of them. And now all their family starts to grow until finally there's one last child that's finally born to Rachel, whom obviously Jacob loved. And because he loved her the most, Joseph, this youngest brother, becomes this one that he favors the most. Now think about this family. There's now 4 women, 12 brothers. That's a lot of brothers living and being a part of this family. You can see how there's tensions and that it gets messy. But on top of that, Joseph is seen as the favorite. And Jacob does this thing for Joseph. He sees him as his favorite because he's the last son, the one who's born to Rachel, whom he loves the most. He gives Joseph this coat, this very fancy coat. And I want you to imagine it like this. Imagine if your parent decided to give a sibling like something really awesome. Maybe gave your sibling a car when they turned 16. The coolest car ever, but you all had to share your mom's van. That's how it would have felt. That he got this most precious, beautiful thing and everyone else got nothing. I mean, everyone realized he was the favorite. And now you can imagine, now there's tension. There's a lot going on in this, right? There's so much tension, there's so much drama, and you can just see how this family dynamic is starting. Now, here's the thing though. Joseph then starts to have these dreams, and then he tells his brothers the dreams he has. And so I want to read them for you. We're going to be in the book of Genesis, and we're going to start in chapter 37, verses 6 through 7. And this is what Joseph said about his dream. He said to them, listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it. Now, you can imagine the brothers were not so stoked about this. He wasn't actually talking about grain. The dream that Joseph was saying was, dude, it looks like I'm going to grow up and rule over you guys. And you can imagine the brothers were like, excuse me? No thanks. And so he continues. It says later on in verse 8, his brothers said to him, do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us? And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he said. Joseph clearly was not realizing that he was affecting his brothers, that he had this dream and maybe he could have kept it to himself. I don't know. But his dream was impacting his brothers. He was telling them that, hey, I had this dream about me ruling over you. Not only is he the favorite son, he got this awesome coat, but now he's claiming he's going to rule over us. And then he ends up having another dream that not only will his brothers bow down, he has this dream about 11 stars and the sun and the moon bow down to him, which shows that not only will the brothers bow down to him, but that their parents, their mother and father is now going to bow down and they are all going to be ruled by Joseph. And what happens? The brothers are ticked off. They're annoyed. They're mad. You see, in this story, we can see that there's all of this tension, this drama. And here's the bottom line that I really think that we can take away from this, is that we need to pay attention to how you affect your family. Look at Joseph. There's a lot of things that the story of Joseph show of how people could have been different. I mean, think about the dad. The dad added to the tension by giving Joseph this coat and making him his favorite. Joseph could have changed and helped his family dynamic by realizing that him telling his brothers about his dream and acting like that without thinking about how it was impacting the brothers, that wasn't cool either. He could have been a little bit more aware of how he was impacting them. He was cool with the dream for himself, but did he really think about how it would affect his brothers? Now, his brothers also, they could have sort of let go of their insecurities, let go of their grudges, instead of allowing it to build hate inside of them. You see, every single one in their family really had a way of adding to the tension, allowing the drama to fester. And the issue is, if you don't deal with that, it's just going to explode. And we're going to see that over the next few weeks. But tonight, I hope that we can see that the bottom line is we need to pay attention to how we affect our family. So many of us, we're like Joseph. We're not thinking about how our attitudes are affecting other people. You may have a parent that is favoring a sibling or acting like that, or you feel like that. And you have to pay attention. How is that impacting you? How is that impacting your family? You may not be able to control how your parent acts, but how are you responding? How can you help with that? What do you do when you don't know what to do, right? That's the big question. What do you do when your family, in your drama, when you're adding to it? And the thing is tonight is we can only start by really recognizing, paying attention to how we affect our family. Now, I know that we really don't know what to do. How do we do that? Well, there's a verse that I want to share from you. Paul wrote this to the Philippians, and I think it points us back to Jesus to help us to see what do we do. He said this in Philippians 2:3-8. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of the others. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus, who, being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness. And being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. You see, I think we can get a cue from Jesus. Jesus died on the cross for us. He died for us. He submitted himself. He became a man. He let go of his rights of being God, right? To die for us, to humble himself. And I think God is inviting us as followers of him to learn from him, to submit to him by then submitting to each other, to let go of our rights to be the favorite, our rights to have what we want, our rights to feel like we have to ask the question, how does this affect me? Instead, maybe we could be asking, how does this affect other people? How are they being affected by how I'm acting? And this isn't easy, but we can start tonight by paying attention to how we affect our family and really asking God, help us to see how I am affecting my family. We may not know what to do right now in this season where there's tensions because we're staying at home together in the house. We can't get out. We're sheltering in place. There may be a lot more drama, and you can't control all the things. You can't control all the things. It's not up to you always, right? But you get to choose how you are going to respond. How do you affect other people? So my prayer is that we can learn to let go of our rights, even in our family, to stop necessarily asking, how does it affect me? But really, how are you affecting others? Think about that. Let me pray for you. God, I pray that you would be with us tonight. Help us to just become more aware of how we're impacting, how we're talking to our family, how we're treating them. God, help us to be reflective enough to not only realize, oh, how is this affecting me and how am I feeling about the situation, but then in turn to think about how we're impacting others. God, move us, change us, help us to see that you love us enough that we don't have to sit in the shame of when we mess up, but we can learn to let go and turn to you, and you can change us. You can grow us so that you can help us to be just more mindful of our family. God, we know that we're going to mess up, but we need you to help us. So be with us tonight. Help us in our discussions as we connect to one another. In your name, amen.